Um, Aloha, everyone. Welcome. For the theme of today's class, I'm going to share sort of like what's going on internally for me and maybe a little bit surrounding Konalani and the Sangha. We have a meditation intensive coming up this weekend, which means a special program that we've been ramping up for a while. And as we head into these, it always happens that the energy really builds in our lives. And the reason I'm sharing all of this is because when I talk to people not even associated with this practice, a lot of times I hear like, there's a lot going on for me, or like, I have to stretch like metaphorically because a lot is being asked. And anyway, so I'm curious, raise your hand if you feel like right now there's a lot going on in your life, or if you're being asked to do a lot, or there's just, I'm curious to see what's happening. Okay, so almost every single person raised their hand. Okay, great. Then the theme of this class is perfect for all of us. And basically, what we're going to be working with is the idea that as all of this happens, truth be told, I wanted to cancel class. I was like, there's too much going on. Like, I have to cancel class. And then I was like, wait a second, Abaya. That's an illusion, right? The illusion is if I take something off my plate, I'll feel better, right? But it never works like that, right? It's like you can accomplish all the things you need to accomplish and still feel kind of revved up. And so instead I decided doing yoga and teaching yoga is the absolute best thing I could possibly do in these circumstances. And instead of taking stuff off my plate, the answer is for us to soften and expand, right? And then from that expansive state, the energy that's creating pressure can actually start to flow. So that's what we'll be focusing on. Let's begin. Cringe a little bit. Anyway, so with that, if you haven't yet spread out your blanket, this is going to help us with our theme. You can zoom out now. The reason the blanket helps is you can't overdo it when you're on a blanket. You can't grip and press because you'll slide. Right, so you have to release that sort of like urge to go too far and let yourself just be with what's available with this frictionless surface. So with that, please turn to your right and make your way onto your back, and imagine you're just melting and softening and relaxing and releasing. Bend the knees, soles of feet to the earth, and find a way to be comfortable here. And if this is not comfortable, find a different way to center. You can be seated upright or lying on one side. And if it feels comfortable, close the eyes, close the mouth, and start to tune into your breath. And without any forcefulness, let the exhale start to slow down. And try to tune in to the sensation of the exhale, that softening that's creating space for the pressure of your life to flow more effortlessly. You might feel the body getting slightly heavier, or perhaps you're becoming more aware of the sensations that are always there, but we're not always paying attention. Have compassion for yourself if slowing down the exhale is challenging, or if the mind is agitated. trust that it's part of the process as we become more expansive. And we'll take several more breaths, so I want to give you some space to explore on your own. I invite you to relax and release any grip or control on the breath, which means it doesn't matter how long the inhale and exhale are anymore. And just let yourself observe your breath. And know that deepening of the breath doesn't come from physically taking in more. It's really more a deepening of your consciousness. And so see if for the next few breaths, without changing anything, you can take this energetically deeper breath by just being more receptive, more conscious of what's naturally happening. And we'll start to wake up the deep core. If you'd like to hit play on the first track on the playlist, you can. Please make sure it's set to loop. Let's all gently reach the hands towards the heels and just become aware of the curves of the spine. And it's natural that the low back arches slightly away from the blanket, but sometimes it overarches. So play with pushing the feet forward away from you, and notice how that helps you lengthen the spine. We're not going for a flat back here, but you might notice just like a gentle flattening as the lumbar curve elongates, and then release. And do this a few times on your own, just the gentle pushing forward with the feet. They don't actually move, but notice how that impacts the legs and then the pelvis and then the spine. And if you're doing it right, you should be able to find a little more length through the back of the neck, which will feel like the chin tucking slightly. And the next time the feet press and the spine lengthens, pause there and let the natural breath flow, and notice what muscles are engaging in the deep abdominals to prevent the low back from arching. You might even feel like it's a little bit harder to breathe with that musculature on. There's a little bit of restriction, which is actually completely healthy and beneficial. And then the next movement is really, really subtle. Without letting the pelvis move, take the weight out of the right foot. It's still touching the earth, but it's almost like it wouldn't leave a footprint. Notice what muscles turn on or increase but are already on, and then release. And take a few of these unweights from left and right. I like to sync this with my breath, exhaling as I take the weight out of one foot. And you might be surprised by the amount of deep but subtle effort that's required for this unweighting. Also, give yourself permission to change where the feet are. Perhaps they're asking to go a little wider, left and right, or forward. This next one's up to you. You can keep alternating, or you can play with unweighting both feet at the same time. That is twice as much weight, so you might notice that that's not sustainable for you, which is totally fine. Then just go back to one at a time. And the next time one or both feet lift, see if you can pause and take a couple of breaths, maintaining that weightlessness. Again, the breath might change. It might feel restricted. As long as you feel safe and comfortable, it is safe. Try to make sure the low back isn't arching, just like we practiced in the beginning. And then release. We'll do this one more time. So if you're doing single-legged, you can go to the other foot. If you're going double-legged, you can do the same thing again. You want to make sure your hip flexors aren't turning on here. If that's happening, the feet are lifting a little too high and the deep core is not doing its job. Let's all release. Bring the soles of the feet together and allow the knees to gently start to melt towards the earth, but avoid going to your deepest hip opening. So that means support is staying on in the hips. Also prevent the low back from arching here, and you'll feel your deep core turn on. And then place the soles of the feet back down and start to snow angel the arms up and overhead, and move really slowly so you have the opportunity to feel your blanket and feel the weight of your arms. And then flip the palms and let the arms come back down. You don't want to feel this too much in your shoulders, so let it be really, really gentle. Nice job. Everyone moved slower going down. You're tuning in more deeply, and then you can flip the palms back up. And if you've got items around you, like I've got this big altar, let the hand be really fluid. You know, maybe the wrist, maybe the elbow adapts. We need to be adaptable, so try to release any agitation. Instead, just imagine yourself like water, finding the path of least resistance through the space around you. And we'll all meet with the arms overhead, but there's no need to rush to get there. And the next, when you find yourself there, just pause for a moment. Let the elbows soften, let the shoulders be soft, and then keeping the pelvis anchored, start to windshield wiper the knees from side to side. And pelvis anchored means the knees aren't going to go very far, right? So Diana, release the pelvis down, keep it touching the earth, and then just let the knees go from side to side. Yeah, awesome. So you might feel a little more core support as you do that. And the next time the knees go to the left hand side, gently roll onto the left. Support your head with your bottom arm. And Colin, you might want to flip sides so that you're facing me. And pause for a moment, just breathing into the left side of the body. Close the eyes and relax. Feel the left side getting more spacious. And then gently start to melt forward just a little bit and melt back just a little bit. And if you feel any tightness anywhere in the body, see if you can change your positioning so that this feels really kind and gentle. And then let the bottom arm slide out in front of your head. Stack the arms and gently start to bring elbows and knees towards one another, but just a few inches. And then start to reach everything out, but you don't have to straighten out completely. And we'll take a few of our protozoa pulses, just letting the whole body gently undulate and work together. And the goal here is to not feel one part in isolation, but to just imagine you're a single-celled organism. And at first, everything contracts, and then everything expands. And I guess by everything, I mean the one thing. And the next time you're moving in the direction of expansion, try to tune into that subtler quality. The bottom arm can eventually go underneath the head again, and feel that reaching out physically, but then also on a deeper level. And it is hard to balance here, so have some compassion for yourself, but eventually try to straighten out. It helps to flex the feet. And notice the little wiggles and wobbles as your body tries to figure this position out. Take a couple of natural breaths. And then push down into the bottom arm and notice how the head and the top arm get light, and you can float effortlessly and then release, and try that a couple times. Less is more. You don't want the bottom arm doing too much work either. Just feel the whole body becoming a little more spacious as you push down and expand upward. And then release the upper body. Let's try the same thing with the legs. So push down in the bottom leg. Let the top leg float. And take a couple of those. You can sync it with your breath, exhaling to float, or doing whatever feels best for you. And the next time the leg floats, add in the arm and see if you can relax and breathe. And then release everything down. Bend both knees like you're going to do another protozoa pulse, but we're going to add on to this. So squeeze elbows and knees together. And then as you go into that second action of lengthening out, start to sweep the top arm down and back, opening into a twist. And then go back into the protozoa action of squeezing elbows and knees together. And now that lengthening action lengthens you and spirals you at the same time. And if this isn't comfortable on either of the shoulders, you can go back into the initial protozoa pulse. If you are spiraling here, try to feel how the reaching slightly down of the knees allows that top shoulder and top arm to reach in the opposite direction. You can feel that X across the body. Try to resist the urge to go far into the twist, and instead try to feel how the whole body is connected and united, and that deep core that you've been waking up is supporting you. The next time you start to spiral open, let your body soften and melt so that you're in the spiral, gently twisting, and the top shoulder can make its way to the earth. Gaze up, gaze to the right. Let the knees float if they need to. You don't want to, you want the body to feel connected and not like the pelvis and shoulder girdle are separate. And then point the knees up towards the sky. Pause on the back and let yourself be receptive for a moment here. Reach the hands back towards the heels. Take a moment to check in with the curves of the spine. Find that neutral that turns the deep core on. And then ever so gently start to reach the knees forward, unweighting the hips. You can lift the hips any amount that feels useful. We've been in a lot of hip flexion, so take a moment to allow the front of the body to become spacious. Make sure you're breathing. And then challenge yourself to release one vertebra down at a time. And the challenge is to actually feel which vertebra is touching down. It means you have to be present. And eventually when the sacrum lands, let your awareness land. Become fully present and awake in your body. Let the natural breath flow and feel yourself spacious, like you can juggle all the things of your life without feeling that pressure building. Let the forehead soften. All right, we got a yawn from Satyam. That always means like, okay, nervous system down regulated. I hope everyone's yawning a little bit. We'll go to the second side, starting with the snow angels. So ever so sweetly let the arms circle overhead. Keep the pelvis anchored at first. Little windshield wipers with the knees, remembering the deep core. And then eventually roll over to the right side. Can stack the head on the bottom arm. And melt forward just a little bit, melt back just a little bit, and start to explore the side body, the breath. And the next movement is the protozoa pulse. So bottom arm slides out, so the head has to release a little bit. Arms stack, and then just gently squeeze elbows and knees towards one another, feeling the whole body connect and condense. Then the whole body lengthen. If you want to sync this with your breath, I'll leave it up to you, because the exhale is useful for both movements. Can actually be extra interesting to exhale as you lengthen out, but there's no right or wrong. Beautiful job. Everyone's moving so fluidly and smoothly. And Anna and Mikey, this is a great test of your marriage to do all these movements in such a small space. You're doing great. The next time you reach out, pause and start to challenge yourself to stack the arms, stack the legs, and find that side lying Tadasana. And there might be some wiggles and wobbles, and that's okay. Breathe, relax, adjust, adapt. And then as you're ready, it doesn't have to be yet, but the next thing is playing with pushing the bottom arm down into the earth and letting head and top arm float, and then releasing. And take as many of those as is useful to you, and then eventually you'll swap to do the same thing for the leg, and then eventually you can play with both at once. And try to do less with the bottom half of the body than you think you need to, right? It's like, how little can you push down to become free and spacious and light with the left side of your body? If you do eventually want to pause and breathe in that floating position, you can try it, but only if it doesn't build tension mentally and physically. And then let's all melt back down. Start to bend knees and elbows towards one another, going into the squeezing part of the protozoa pulse. But then as you lengthen out, let your body, your upper body, spiral open so the top arm reaches slightly away. And then squeeze back together. And then reach. And again, if this is ever not comfortable for top or bottom shoulder, just go back into the initial protozoa pulse. That's absolutely fine. If you are spiraling, try to feel how the reaching of the legs allows the upper body to reach and spiral away. Try to feel those connections. We'll take 2 more. And then the next time you spiral open, get really soft and fluid so that that top shoulder can melt towards the earth. The knees can lift any amount that makes this more integrated and gentle. Gaze up or at the left arm. And just breathe softly into the twist. And then point the knees up towards the sky, roll onto the back, reach the hands towards the heels. Imagine you're jumping with the feet. Take some jumps and just let the feet land wherever they naturally want to land. And then the next time they land, see if it's a comfortable place for your bridge pose. Reach the knees forward, unweight the pelvis nice and slow. And then melt 1 vertebra down at a time. Lift the feet, grab behind the thighs. Start to rock and roll forward and back. We're coming up to seated, so you can meet me at seated if it's not comfortable to rock and roll. And the next time you come up, pause there and see if you can find a balance point where the toes are just touching down. Notice the spine. See if you can create a little length there and start to rock from sit bone to sit bone. Let the shoulders be soft. The feet can separate any amount that feels comfortable. And then we'll wake up the arms a little bit. So karate chop with the left hand behind you. So the pinky side, hiya. And notice how that sends a signal up the back of the arm through the triceps into the shoulder and the back body. And those are the muscles that we want supporting us. The next time the hand touches down, pause there. Let the fingertips ever so gently touch. Keep the knuckles light. Bend the elbow a couple times, getting really springy in the arm. The hand can come away from the floor as you bounce. And the next time you bounce, lift the arms overhead and notice the difference between right and left sides. Maybe there's a tingling or a buzzing or a lightness. And then we'll go to the other side. So karate chopping with the other hand. Take a few of those. You can, maybe I shouldn't have said karate chop. You can be as gentle as you want to be. And then the next time the pinky touches down, trace the effort up into the triceps. It's the back of the arm into the shoulder, and keep the front of the body nice and soft and open. And then fingertips touch down, but the knuckles stay really light and buoyant. Bend the elbow. Make sure it's bending in towards the body, and then take your springs. The next time you spring, reach both arms up. Let the shoulders and elbows be soft, and notice any spaciousness through the arms. You can wiggle your fingers a little bit as if energy was emanating from each one. And then release the hands behind you. Any angle is fine as long as the wrists and palms feel comfortable. I like my hands turned out pretty generously. Bring the soles of the feet together, and just like we did on the back, let the knees gently float open, but don't let go completely. So there's a sense of the inner thighs working and integrating into your deep core. And then kick one heel out at a time, letting it glide across your blanket. Just a wide Paschimottanasana, so not quite a straddle. Bend one elbow at a time, swaying from side to side. And then cross the right ankle in front of the left. Plant the left hand behind you. Lift the right hand and slowly rotate to the left so that you can pivot to a tabletop. Nice. Just like we practiced with our karate chops, shift the weight from palm to palm, keeping most of it in the pinky side of the hand. And then slowly lower one elbow at a time. So you're on your forearms. Extend the left leg out into a half plank and allow the, right leg out. Right leg out. Let the left knee slide in a little bit and take a, did I mess up again? Okay. Right leg back, left knee forward. Okay. It's good to switch sides a bunch. I did that on purpose. Push down into the left shin, taking a moment to let the left side of the body energize. Notice the left side starting to get warm and let the hips gently sway from side to side. And then bring the right knee in and out a couple of times just to demand a little bit more of the left side, but try to relax. Try to soften and find the path of least resistance, even though this is asking a lot of the left side. The next time everything stretches out, play with lifting the right leg and notice the engagement through the back of the hip. Cross the right leg over the left. Come back up onto the hands. The left leg's probably nice and warm now. Make some circles with the hips, massaging out the left leg. Make sure you can breathe. Let yourself soften. The next time the weight shifts forward into the left knee, push down into the left knee, push down into the left hand, and slowly slide the right leg back. Let the whole right side of the body open and stack into a quarter moon, and let yourself get really spacious and light here. And then release. So you're facing your blanket once again, and we'll go through that sequence again, and I'll talk you through it. So first, lower onto the forearms. Notice the left shin. Notice the work happening in the deep core. And play with hovering the right foot and setting it back down. And take a couple of pulses here, noticing how the left leg warms as you do this. You can sync it with the breath, exhaling to lift. And then slide the right knee behind the left. Come back onto the hands and start to circle the hips, massaging, relaxing, but still feeling strong. We want to feel softer in the movements where we're exerting, and we want to feel a little stronger in the movements when we're releasing, to find balance so we're not just swinging from one extreme to the next. The next time the weight shifts forward, push down into the left knee and left hand. Let the body open. Pause, breathe. Wobbles are okay as long as you feel safe. And then we'll add one thing on, releasing the hand, squaring off to the mat. The legs are staggered. Tuck the toes under. Push into the hands, lift the left knee, and start to send the hips up and back. I know that the hands tend to slide on blankets. Just don't go as far and be okay with that. Let yourself be where the environment is allowing you. Sway the hips a little bit. And then gently release the knee back down. And I forgot to tell you to go to the next track. So you could pause and go to the next track for the last round of this side, and then we'll do the second side. So for the last round, we start with our leg lifts. And we want the left knee to be slightly forward of the hip, and that's going to force us to use the glute on the right side, which most of us benefit from. Next time the leg lifts, slide it behind the other leg and make your hip circles. And then as the weight shifts into the left knee, push down into left knee, left hand, opening up, getting light and spacious. Oh, this is not the right. Maybe exit and try again. This isn't the right playlist. Release back down, staggered down dog, releasing any sense of doership. The blanket forces you to release stewardship. You can't overdo it here. I love it. And then set the left knee down, set the right knee down. Let the knees go wide and slide the hands forward, hips to heels. Take a moment to soften and notice the work on the left side of the body. We did a lot of strengthening paired with massaging, and so you might feel some space, some energy flowing. And whatever you're witnessing, see if you can sink into that, as if you were able to feel the space between your cells. And then push down into the shins to float up to table, and we'll do the second side. So we'll start by lowering the forearms down, sneaking the right knee forward just a little bit, and then starting to reach the left leg back. Pause, tuck the left toes under, take a couple of breaths here, letting the right leg get used to this work. And then if this feels safe, you can play with exhaling to lift the left foot. And notice the stabilization required in the right leg and hip. The next time left leg lifts, cross it behind the right, come back onto the hands and start to circle the hips. Or do anything that the body's craving. And then start to push into the right hand and the right shin, letting the body open and float to the other side, quarter moon. The top leg can touch the earth or it can rise, whatever feels best, but try to relax here. Even if you're wiggling and wobbling, can bend the right elbow a little bit, getting springy like we practiced. And then release down, squaring off to the mat. Pause for a moment, and we'll repeat that exact flow again, and then add the down dog. So lower to the forearms. Pause here and breathe. Make sure the right knee is forward of the hip. Start to hover the left leg. Try moving slower, which is going to demand more presence, but also more strength. The next time the leg lifts, cross it behind, float back onto the hands, and take your circles. Notice how circling the hips changes where you feel the sensation, maybe in the back of the hips and then the right IT band. And then as the weight shifts forward, push down into hand and shin, float open into quarter moon. Soften, relax. See if you can tune into a sense of spaciousness here. You can gently reach out in all directions. Check in with the ribs. Make sure they're not flaring. If they are, play with exhaling and noticing the curve of the lumbar spine like we played with on the back, and see if you can find a little more length, allowing the ribs to integrate. And then release everything down, and now we add the staggered down dog. So tuck toes under, unweight the right knee, push into the hands, let the hips go up and back. Option to gently sway from side to side. Keep the hands really soft, and we're still keeping the weight in the pinky side of the hand. That's the kindest on the wrists, it's the springiest in the hands. And then release the right knee down. Last round. It's up to you. You can stay on your hands or you can go down to forearms. Wherever you are, float the left leg. If you want to float and hold and breathe, you can, or you keep pulsing. And then cross the leg behind. Come back onto the hands if you've lowered, and massage the hips, and ever so gently squeeze the inner thighs together and see if you can feel that strength emanate up the spine. And notice how that changes the massage. Maybe you don't go as far in the hip circles. Perhaps you can feel a little more muscular energy. And the next time the weight shifts forward, open up into your quarter moon. And then release back down, tuck toes, and press into your staggered down dog. Step back into plank. Bend both knees and ever so gently start to lift the hips. You can't push too much with the hands, right? Because they'll slide. So see if you can sneakily get your hips weightless. If the hands slide, it's awesome because your core is automatically going to turn on to keep you from falling. So it's a great real world balance challenge, core challenge. And then start to walk one hand in at a time, bending the knees really deeply, coming into Uttanasana. And we're making our way up to standing, so if this isn't comfortable, you can just meet us at standing. If Uttanasana is feeling good, you can gently sway from side to side. Bring a little extra weight into the heels, and notice how that helps the hamstrings turn on to support the pelvis. Check in with the back of the neck. Let those muscles release if you feel any tightness. And then start to walk the hands up the legs, slowly supporting yourself. Drop the sits bones towards the heels and roll up one vertebra at a time. And I don't know if it's just our playlist didn't update, but now we're going to the third track, which should be the same as the second track from last week. So the Para for Quevo one. Cool. My head's chopped off. Sorry, that's not a good thing to say. Okay. So from standing, start to shift the weight from foot to foot and give yourself permission and space to allow the lifted foot to adjust its positioning, right? Trusting that if you're not thinking and you're just allowing, the feet are going to find their way to the optimal support base for you. And then equal weight in both feet. Pause for a moment, start to rock forward and back. And as you rock forward, notice how the toes grip. This is actually really good. It turns on the transverse arch of the foot between the big toe and the pinky. And then start to notice the sensation as you rock back. You might feel a little more strength in the back line of the body, namely the erector spinae. Keep the big toe anchored as you rock back, otherwise you'll actually fall backwards. We don't want that. And then let the rocks get smaller and smaller until there's equal weight in the ball of the foot and the heel. And pause there. Start to bend the knees as you scoop the air up, reaching back into chair pose. And then shift the weight forward, coming onto tiptoes. Sweep the arms back, letting the whole front of the body open. Take a couple of these pulses. You can sync it with your breath. Doesn't matter which is which. Just let the breath guide the movement and use your exhale to feel a sense of connection and integration, spaciousness. And the next time you come onto tiptoes, play with going for a walk towards the front of your mat. And then set the heels down and let your awareness drop into your feet, into your footprints. Shift the weight into the left foot. Bend the left knee a little bit and float the right foot so you're in a single-legged balance. Anchor the left foot down and try to neutralize the pelvis and the spine like we've been practicing. I really like to lift through the right heel here to turn my hamstring on so my hip flexors don't do the work. So you can flex the foot and drive the heel up a little. Notice what that does for the back of the right leg. And then get bouncy in the left leg. Get really springy. And keeping that bounce going, start to step the right foot back without losing the springiness. So you'll probably be in a pretty short position. I'll give you, great. Keep both knees bent, back toes are down, but the heels lifted. Grab a big bowl with your arms and start to spiral to the left, dropping the right knee slightly as you spiral for Atlas twist. And then shift the weight into the left foot, float the right foot just like we practiced before. And let's play between those two shapes. Exhaling to spiral into the twist, and then inhaling to float into the single-legged balance. If the transition is a lot for you, you can take several bounces and then you can transition. Or if it feels really good and you like the work that's happening in the left leg, you can get a little springier and bouncier. Make sure you're keeping the weight in the left heel so that there's not any pressure in the knee. And the next time the leg steps back, pause in the Atlas twist. I'm sorry, I know you're twisting away from me. Take a breath, feel the warmth in the left leg, and then start to circle the arms over to the right, turning all 10 toes to the side, turning the feet all the way to the right, shift the weight into the right foot, generous bend in the right knee, float the back foot just like we practiced on the ground in this position, and just feel the strength emanating up the back of the body. And then slowly start to shift forward into the single leg balance with the right leg down and the left knee hovering. Pause there, take a couple of breaths. Notice the heart rate. And then we'll prepare for Atlas twist on the second side. So get bouncy in the right leg. Remember, we want the right heel driving down, no pressure in the front of the knee. And then keeping that bounciness, step the left foot back, or keeping the toes down and the heel lifted. It's probably going to be a pretty short stance, which is what we want, so we're nice and bouncy. And then use your exhale to sweep and wrap and spiral to the right. Simultaneously drop the left knee. That's going to help you strengthen and integrate. And then shift the weight into the right foot and come into the single leg balance. Take a few of these pulses on your own, and let's all practice moving a little slower so that if I said freeze, you could pause at any moment in the movement and have full control. And the next time you're in the Atlas twist, pause there. Breathe. And then sweep the arms, let the feet follow all the way to the other side. Shift the weight into the left heel. Float the hands back and let the right leg lift into a Virabhadrasana 3 prep pose. Take a couple of breaths here. And then slowly drop the toes. Turn into your Atlas twist, and now we're going to put that all together. And so from the Atlas twist, we shift into the single leg balance. From the single leg balance, we go back into Atlas twist, and then we sweep all the way to the other side for Virabhadrasana 3. From Virabhadrasana 3, we drop the back toes, Atlas twist. And then from Atlas twist, single leg balance. So here's the secret. We always alternate with an Atlas twist. So from the single leg balance, we're back to Atlas twist. And then from Atlas twist, we go all the way over to the other side, Virabhadrasana 3. And then back into Atlas twist on that same side, into our single leg balance. And I want you guys, once you've got the hang of the sequence, to start to explore this at your own pace. And it's okay if you mess up the order. There's really no right or wrong. If you're balancing, it means the next thing you're doing is an Atlas twist. And then as you're swirling through space, try to feel your breath. Let your breath draw into your heart center. And see if you can be really centered even as all these big movements take place. And you can be present with both, the center of your being and the edges, your inner life and then your outer life. At any time you can pause, you can move a little slower, and really try to feel the sensations in your body. And they're big movements, but see how centered and relaxed you can be. Let go of any worry of doing it right or thinking of what comes next. I've definitely messed up a bunch of times. And we'll take one more to each side. If you feel like holding Virabhadrasana 3 just to notice the strength that you've cultivated even through a very slow and smooth class, I invite you to explore that. Or add on anything that the body's craving. We did have an Urdhva Chandrasana prep pose, so if the body's feeling like, ooh, I want to see how that goes. Ah, beautiful. Wow. Amazing. And once you feel like you've balanced it out, I don't even want to stop you. Everyone's like got their own cool thing happening. It's really beautiful. We'll all meet in a wide straddle. Can face me just for simplicity. And we'll come to stillness for the first time in a little while. Let the awareness sink into the heart and notice any sense of energy flowing or even spiraling around you. And see if you can feel that stimulation without being drawn out of your heart center. And let the feet point out, and we're making our way down towards the mat. Actually, I changed my mind. I want to do downward dog again. So turn to your right and come to Tadasana. Imagine there's TheraBand, a big thick rubber band around the ankle. Grab on and start to stretch it forward and up, and there's a little bit of resistance, and feel how your body has to effort a little bit and unite as one nice opening through the front of the body. And then let the resistance start to pull you forward, hinging at the hips. Bend the knees. Bend the knees really deeply and start to sway the hips from side to side, pawing the hands forward. Gently, almost like bear walking into your downward facing dog. Again, notice how you have to behave differently here than you might be used to, and be okay with whatever shape you're in. Be compassionate and a little softer. And then slowly lift the heels, push into the balls of the feet, and hollow out the body so you're rounding into a puffy plank. Drop your knees down so you're in cat pose, so the spine is rounded. And then push into the hands so the hips are traveling towards the heels. Push down into the knees, slowly roll up one vertebra at a time. Start reaching the left hand forward, up and open. Push down a little extra with the right knee. And let's pause in a spiraling camel for one moment. Breathe, soften through the elbows. And then let the back arm continue the spiral, turning forward. And we'll repeat that on the second side. So hands down, knees up, press into the hands to send the hips back into down dog. Lift the heels, round forward, drop the knees whenever it feels right, and then send the hips back, slowly rolling up, pushing extra into the left knee so the right arm can circle up and back. And we'll take a couple of these at our own pace, traveling from a soft down dog into cat
plank, cat, and then letting the momentum carry our hips back, and then like a little spring, they press forward, letting us lift into our circling camel. If you want to pause at any point in down dog or in camel or in cat, please listen to your body. Those are all different movements, right? We've got a forward fold, a back bend, a twist. So notice if the body's really enjoying or benefiting from one of those. Or maybe even something that I haven't offered. And just like we practiced in our spiraling balance sequence, see if you can stay at the center of all the movement, right? All the movement of your life that continues endlessly, whether you want it to or not. But you don't have to get caught up in the swirl. You can observe it, and you can absorb the energy of all of it. And after you balance outside, so for me that was spiraling to my right, we'll all meet in either down dog or cat. And then all the way back into Bhaktasana. It's up to you if you want. If your body allows, bring the knees together just to help the low back release. But knees can be wide if that's more comfortable. And then push down into the shins, slowly rolling up one vertebra at a time. Let the hips come over to the left hand side, and just like we did on our back, curl the elbows in towards the knees, so that protozoa pulse action. And then push into the outside of the left leg. Let the whole body extend, taking you into the spiral. The arms can float wherever's comfortable. I'm enjoying reaching them down. And then you can stay there and breathe, or you can continue to pulse like we did on our side. So the pulsation can happen with the breath, or it can happen with your movement. And then when you're ready for the second side, bring your hips onto the heels and sit them over to the other side. We start by curling in and then pushing down into the shins, slow motion, letting the whole body inflate and expand as you spiral to the right. Arms can come down to relax the shoulders, or whatever the body wants. You can stay there and breathe, or you can take a few pulses. To pulse here, I'm enjoying keeping my hands where they are, but sinking and deflating and coming out of the twist, almost as if I was doing the protozoa pulse, and then pushing down into the shins to expand and spiral. And then when you've completed your twist, kick the legs out so they're in front of you. And lift one sit bone at a time as if you were marching in place. Let one heel, the heel of the lifted sit bone, reach. Letting the legs and hips create a lot of space. I really enjoy having a lot of space between my feet here, so you're welcome to try that. And then eventually find equal weight in both sits bones. And if this feels tight on the low back, you can tent the fingers behind you and you can lean back. If it feels comfortable, you can just pause in Dandasana, just feeling the length of the back line of the body. You can play with flexing the feet and bring your awareness to the lumbar curve that we've been focusing on so much in class. And you can use your hands for tactile feedback. Just notice if you're able to find neutral and the musculature required to maintain that. And then grab your blankets. We're not going to stay here very long, but we'll still need the blankets for Shavasana anyway. You can pause your music. Take one blanket and roll it up, putting it behind your knees so there's a nice soft bend. And then the second blanket rolls up and it goes between your belly and your thighs, so that if you were to pitch forward a little bit, there would be some support. And then the final blanket goes on top of that, and you're actually going to bring your elbows to that. Oh, those are not going to work. Oh, you can use those cushions if you want. You can also use pillows or like anything big. The elbows are going to come onto the blanket, and then the head is going to rest on, or the forehead's going to rest on the palms. It's just a really gentle forward fold, and you don't really want to feel too much of a stretch, right? Check in and make sure the head's not dropping like this. That's going to put strain in between the shoulders, so just a nice even curve. If you feel it in one part of the spine or back muscles, it means you're probably a little too far into it. It's almost like you're just sitting up and having a bad day, like, oh. But we're not. We're having a great day. What if we could practice being in this position and being really happy? It might help rewire some pathways. And just take a couple of breaths. We had a lot of movement in class, so I wanted there to be a nice segue before Shavasana where you could be centered and conscious and upright, but soft and inwardly focused. Use the breath to stay conscious, but also to massage through the neck, through the shoulders, through the muscles alongside the spine, maybe even the hamstrings. Just letting that pulsation of the breath help you move your consciousness throughout the body. And see if you can find a little more softness with each breath. And for the last moment, I invite you to explore rolling up out of it just an inch so you can feel the back line of the body engage, all the muscles that are lengthened, activate. And then as a whole, from soles of feet all the way to the crown of the head, let that space lengthen, let the whole body melt, and just see where the pose evolves. It can look exactly the same, but feel more spacious, feel softer. And then push down into the heels, push down into the sits bones. Let one vertebra at a time stack, slowly coming back to Dandasana, where the spine is neutral. Can keep the blanket behind the backs of the knees, and then use your other blankets to set up for Shavasana. If you have a favorite way, you can just get right into Shavasana. I will invite some options if you want to try them. I do enjoy having a little support under my head, and rolling the blanket can actually, almost like a neck pillow that you'd wear on an airplane, it can provide some support at the base of the skull. And then the other blanket can be nice for warmth, so you can relax more deeply. It can be a little weight on the belly to help you feel calm and safe. It can also open up a little wider and support the forearms so that there's like a nice gentle bend in the forearms. So take your time. There's no need to rush, but find your way into something sweet and supportive where the body can let go. It no longer has to do any work to support you. And notice how, as the body lets go, the breath may become freer. And it is okay to fall asleep. It means you need sleep. But if possible, staying tuned into the breath and staying conscious is really beneficial. So I invite you to let go of the body, let go of the thoughts, and just be in that subtler space of the breath and the inner flow. And just imagine that you have a larger capacity and more space for all of the energy of your life to flow. You don't need to cancel your yoga class. You can, that's okay. Sometimes that's good. But really you can get bigger and more spacious by relaxing and opening. So we'll rest in this conscious, spacious awareness for the next several minutes. Let yourself just be as you are, unmoving. Notice if that's easy or if that's hard, without any judgment, just observe. And then start observing your natural breath flow. And notice at the end of class, it's easier to observe it without changing it. And without changing the breath, imagine taking a deeper breath by being more receptive to the natural breath flow, by feeling it more, by craving it more, by drinking it into the deepest part of you, but letting the breath stay natural. And notice if in this moment you feel capable and equipped of handling what life presents you. If you have that even balance inside. And imagine leaving behind a contracted form of yourself and eventually making your way up to seated in your most expansive form, something larger than the confines of your physical body, as if you were just energy floating up to a seated shape. And when you eventually make your way up to seated, get comfortable. And I'll show you how I'm sitting, because this has been a recent game changer for my hips. I've just been stacking one blanket. If you like to sit high, you might stack two. And then I take the final blanket and I'm folding it an additional time. And it creates just this little wedge that can move with my pelvis. And that has been really enjoyable and comfortable on my hips. So feel free to try that as long as you have all these blankets around. And once you've found a comfortable way to sit, let the physical body soften. You can close the eyes or find a single gaze point. Observe your breath just like you did in Shavasana, without changing it. And notice if you can more fully receive your breath. It's like there's more energetic space inside of you to absorb. You don't have to breathe deeper. You can just let the natural breath flow soak in. And this should feel really sweet and natural and gentle. No exertion. And when you open up to the breath in this deeper way inside, there starts to be more of a sense of the prana that is linked to the breath. And so you might feel that deeper sense of energetic nourishment coming in, as well as the oxygen. And we'll attach the mantra Om Namah Shivaya to each in-breath and each out-breath. Letting the vibration of the mantra nourish us just like the oxygen, just like the prana. You can, if you're a visual person, you can imagine the mantra as like a bright glowing light. And as you repeat it, your body starts to store and accumulate this light, one mantra at a time. And as I prepare to ring the tinkshas, the chime begins at a single point and then radiates subtly more and more expansively. And so I invite you to use the sound of the tinkshas to feel the heart center and then to feel yourself becoming more and more spacious. Thank you so much for being here and practicing. It's such a joy to be with you, and my hope for myself through this practice, and of course for all of you, is that I can be more joyful as I go through that feeling of overwhelm and so much pressure, because I know each of you is going to get through it. And so I hope we can do it with more joy in our hearts and more spaciousness. Have an amazing week. I'm happy to stick around if there are any questions. See you soon. Aloha.
I feel wonderful.
Oh, yay. Congratulations.
See you at the intensive.
Can't wait.
Bye,
Namaste. Thanks for being here, Tammy. Thanks for coming, Mikey. I hope you enjoyed class. I know the first one's a little different than most yoga, so hope that it went well for you. Sorry, you guys are super quiet. I'm gonna just come over so I can turn it up. Can you say that one more time?
I was just saying thank you very much. I haven't been doing yoga in months, and I feel like I haven't had that.
Oh, yay. I'm so happy to hear that. Welcome back.
So much.
You finally made the time. I've been trying to listen to you for a while.
Oh, I'm so glad it worked out. I feel like today's a good day. Oh, absolutely. See you soon.